Hello, welcome back to part 2 of the RadiantUI SDK tutorial series. I'm just going to start right where I left off in the prior video. I have a WebView actor here placed in the world, and I just want to go over some of the basic settings that are on WebView actors, and also we'll add some interaction to this guy in this video. So I'm going to go ahead and open up his blueprint, and we'll just go over some of the defaults here, the default information that you can change. So if you scroll down to the WebView section, we have size, and this is actually the size of the render target that is the web page is rendered into, and this is mapped into whatever material that you've defined on your static mesh that it should replace. The only reason this is important, is it will affect the resolution of things in game and how readable they are, but you're free to set those things within your needs. One thing to mention is that what is important here is the aspect ratio. It should make sense if you want things to look right. For example, this guy's square right now, but if I wanted to make him more of a 16 by 9 looking screen, I'll just change this into a 1.6 ratio there, and that's a 16 by 9 rectangle. If I were to play this, the image is all squished, and to fix that I would want to make my render target match that aspect ratio. And so when I do that, you'll see that it now looks correct, and that's actually a pretty significant difference there. Okay, so moving on here. So we've got transparent rendering as an option. If you select this, you'll need to put a translucent material on your static mesh, and I'll go into some depth on that in a later video. The refresh rate here, this is a maximum frequency that the view will be rendered. Typically websites don't render that often, but if you're doing your own local HTML and you're doing fancy game stuff, you may actually be animating things at a pretty decent frame rate. This just lets you control what the upper limit is. If you want no limit on the frequency of updates, you can just set this to 0, and that will render as often as needed. So I'll keep it back to 30. This is the URL that you're going to go to. I've changed mine obviously here. This is just the class default. And then this can be changed through events. There are blueprint function calls to go to a new URL. Typically though, if you're doing your own local content, you're not going to be changing the URL. That's probably not how you'd want to do transitions and things like that, but you never know. Now the initial canvas color, this is what the view will be filled in prior to it being painted by the website. So if something takes a long time to download or whatever, this is just saying just fill it in black. Projected cursor, this is an interaction thing. If you are interacting with the surface, and by interaction I mean like you are feeding it input like keyboard and mouse motion, this will just let you say that you don't want to see a cursor or you do want to see a mouse cursor on the view, and that's defaulted to on. Now as far as cursors go, you can specify the cursors that you would like to see. These are just Unreal textures. Right now they're pointing to the plugin content. Now something to note in packaging, Unreal 4 plugins currently don't properly handle plugin content. So any content in your project that references a plugin's content path won't be packaged right, and they just won't show up when you're going to do it. So you will want to change this to, you will either want to copy these assets out and bring them into your own project and reference them there, or you want to make your own, but you definitely won't want to reference the ones by default inside the plugin, because it won't work when you package. You won't see them anymore. And this is the material index. This is the material on your static mesh that you want to replace with the WebView. And then this is a more advanced option. We'll get into that later. And then this is, of course, whether or not it's enabled. And this is, I can't remember actually if this is interaction or if this is painting. And it's maybe just painting, so it may not load at all. Actually, well, let's just see what that does real fast. Yeah, okay, so it's just not going to do anything when it's not enabled. That makes sense. I'll put that back. And then this is another advanced option. Both these options are actually for when you want an actor to sort of respond, like if you want it to be displaying like a static sort of view of something or a particular effect. You can say, I want to put this material, the replace material, on the surface that onto the material index when you are not being interacted with. And then I want to swap with that material with the WebView when I am being interacted with. So I don't know if you've seen the demo video, but that's how the view screens are done. The replace material is actually set to be that overlaying wavy pattern on the screen, and then it's set to swap when it's overlapped. And so when you get close enough, it swaps to the WebView, and then it swaps back to the replacement material. So that's what that does. And then some of this is pretty important here. So the trace channel, this is the channel that the interaction code will be looking for to see if it can interact with your mesh. So your mesh needs to, in order to properly support interaction, it needs to do triangle level. So it needs to do like well, I can't remember exactly what the term is, but it's per triangle collision. And actually, we could just look at that real fast. Actually, let me open that up and find this. Oops. And it's the complex collision. And you want to make sure that you're using complex collision on things that you want to have be interactive, because it needs that for the tracing. So go back here. So that's what the trace channel is, and you'll want to make sure your object's trace response is actually set to be, right now it's block all, so that just works. But you can choose a custom one if you want, or you can set up your own channels. The trace oversize, you'll see in a few minutes when we get interaction working that this is actually the amount of the distance from the player that you want to maximally trace to see if you're interacting, because you may have a constrained area or something like that that doesn't normally get reached, and that's sort of an advanced feature. We'll talk about that in detail in a future video. This is whether or not the actor is going to work in networked mode, and this is purely for convenience, and we can get into that in another video as well. Interactive, whether or not you're going to be able to use the surface at all, and if you are, what your input mode is. So if you just want to only see a cursor, or if you want to use your cursor and mouse buttons, or you want cursor and full keyboard support. And then this is if you want to be able to use the mouse cursor buttons for navigation as well. So looks like I'm actually out of time on this video, so we'll just continue this in the next one. So thanks for watching.